before we hop into Age of Overlord Tour, we're gonna have a small little, React Andy break because we're about to have lunch. We're gonna watch something that I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for this. I really wanted to do this, but I wanted to focus on YCS Dortmund and everything. But now we finally have the time to watch the Yu-Gi-Oh! 2009 recap. If you remember, if you were here, it was like 2 weeks ago we watched the 2008 one, and it's such a nostalgic. It was such a nostalgic video, so I'm really looking forward to this one. So we're gonna watch it today. And afterwards we're going to look at Age of Overlord. So I kind of like how this stream was structured because we had the class in the beginning. Now I'm the substitute teacher that brings a movie to class, right? Everyone loves that, right? So now we're gonna have the substitute teacher that shows you guys a movie, and then afterwards we're gonna go back to class for Age of Overlord, right? So for now, my role is just the substitute teacher that watches a movie with you guys. So that's what we're gonna do now. Poggers, movie time, movie angle. Also, once again, huge shout out to the Law Yugioh. I'm gonna link you guys the video right now, because the content on this channel, honestly, for old Yugi heads like me, this one is just perfect. So let's go. Were you playing competitively in 2009? Okay, so just so we're all on the same page, my situation in 2009 I was 13 years old. I was 13 years old. I turned 14 in 2009 in September. So I was going to locals. I was going to locals a lot, but I did not play really competitively, simply because I was not allowed to travel very much as a 13-year-old, which is understandable. So there was at the time, even this is how long ago we're talking, there were no YCSs yet. They did not exist yet. In the USA, there were Shonen Jump Championship Series, is what they were called. But in Europe, we did not even have those. In Europe, the only thing that we had at the time, I think it was called Pharaoh Tours. And Pharaoh Tours was kind of the equivalent to Shonen Jump Championship Series in the US, which is kind of the nowadays equivalent to a YCS. But I never got to play in a Pharaoh Tour because I was simply too young. They were always kind of far away, and I never got to travel to one. So what I played at the time was I played locals pretty much every week or even multiple times a week. And I would travel to like regional level events, that kind of stuff, right?
As we leave the wreckage of the meta that was the end of 2008's metagame, changes were on the horizon. We had just entered the 5Ds era proper.
And this is, also for context, this is just after Synchros came out in 2008. So it shifted from, before Synchros, the meta was Dark Armed Dragon decks and Gladiator Beasts mostly. And then we got tuners, we got Lightsworns, we got it was Teledad, Lightsworn, that kind of era.
And since its start, Teledad was an uncontrollable beast, taking over every event's top cut and threatening to do the same going into 2009 with no.
Do you have any experience that I could share with my son? He's 16 and just qualified for his first Euros next year. Regularly tops locals and we travel for regionals. I'm more than happy to support him in a hobby he enjoys. First of all, based dad, wholesome dad, very very nice to hear that. No, I think your son is on a very promising way. If he's already doing well at locals and so on and so forth, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be able to improve on that. And but for now, I think it's just important that he keeps enjoying the hobby. You know, as long as he keeps enjoying the hobby, he's gonna be okay. I think that's the most natural thing that always happens is the people that enjoy the game and keep enjoying the game are the ones that are usually going to be successful at some point. It's something that the process of getting better at this game should never really feel like it's hard work, even though it is, and it takes a lot of time to get better at this game. But As long as he enjoys it and it keeps him happy, I don't think he needs to worry about getting better because it's going to happen, right?
No shot at a ban list until March unless an emergency one would drop. In addition to this, a lawsuit was raging on in the background, as Konami versus Upper Deck had come to a head with Konami refusing to provide product to Upper Deck for distribution, with Upper Deck issuing a statement saying that the newest set of champion packs, the packs used as entry compensation and prizing at LCS tournaments, was not provided to them for distribution, to which Konami issued a statement claiming that it was due to
Is this better to watch at 1.25 or 1?
Konami terminating the contract between the two companies,
Even
though the issue was still being debated in court.
Because it is quite long, but I still want to thoroughly enjoy it. But let's see.
Because of this, there was no beginning of the year set release that would usually kick off the year, meaning we're going to be
0.75. That's a GigaChat answer.
Jumping straight into the SJC circuit. SJCs this particular year are also going to be a bit of a sticky situation, as the Shonen Jump Championships were mostly an Upper Deck creation, meaning that with the constant fluctuation from Konami v Upper Deck, SJCs were going to slow off tremendously this year compared to the previous years, resulting in only 7 SJCs in the entirety of 2009, 2 of which would happen before the lawsuit would be settled. SJC San Francisco would take place on January 10th, and surprisingly...
Yeah, so this is where we're at. Teledat is by far the best deck, or the most popular deck for sure. Lightsworn exists, Glad Beast exists, I don't know what the hell Soul Control is, and Zombies is also kind of there.
No one, Teledad's Tier 0 reign was still in full swing, taking 12 of the top 16, with the remaining top spots going to decks we've seen previously. Alejandro Reyes would win the day on Teledad, seeing a fairly...
Oh man, it's such a cool looking deck, man. Even though it was Tier 0, it's such a cool looking deck. It was so expensive though.
Standard lineup to those we've seen recently, with more emphasis placed on discard tools like Snipe Hunter and Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. SJC Houston would follow a week later on January 17th, and we'd see yet another dominating performance from Teledad, taking 14 of the top 16.
You don't know Soul Control? Well, we never called it that. For us, it was just Monarchs. We never called it Soul Control.
First place piloted by Jerry Wang, claiming his 3rd SJC title, with his list dropping some of the discard tools in favor of Special Summon Negation with cards like Royal Oppression.
Oh, this is when... Oh god, this is where... the Solemns and the Royal Oppression start hitting in. Oh, yeah. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. This is where people realize Solemn Judgment and Royal Oppression are pretty damn powerful cards, dude. Woo!
And Solemn Judgment. We would also see a new set of Shonen Jump promos hit mailboxes around this time, and both were powerful in very different ways. The first of these was Dandelion, who special summoned 2 level 1 fluff tokens when sent to grave. While the card had already been preemptively limited, Dandelion would make some decks playing plant options like Lone Fire more consistent, although its true power would come later in the era due to its synergy with 2 plant tuners that had not yet been released. The second was a new Dragon boss monster and Red Eye's Darkness Metal Dragon, a level 10 boss that could be special summoned by
that one, I want to say at the time of release in 2009, at least for my local scene, that thing did not really... I don't think people played that yet.
Banishing a dragon on field and could special summon a dragon from grave once per turn. While Red Med was notably powerful, he was inconsistent to set up at this time, as its most consistent enabler, Red Eye's Wyvern, was exclusive to the EU at this time thanks to its inclusion in the Tag Force 3 bundle overseas. Because of that,
I didn't know we had exclusive stuff in EU. There was a lot of stuff that was exclusive in NA, like Jump promos, and we didn't get it. I didn't know there was EU exclusive stuff.
Wyvern was not legal.
Take that, K Konas.
Play in US tournaments, along with its sister promo Gallus the Star Beast, until it received some form of US reprint. With that established, set releases were about to begin rolling again, as in mid-February, a decision was reached in the California court system, ordering Upper Deck to, effective immediately, stop all association with Konami's trademark property and disassociate itself from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, returning all control of the game and its surrounding environment back into the hands of Konami. Because of this shift, all SJCs in 2009 were placed on a temporary hold as control of the game shifted back to Konami, meaning we won't be seeing any further tournament results until around April, when the tournament scene would slowly start back up again.
Oh my god, Armory Arm. Okay, chat, I have a test for you. Name one card that comes to mind when you see Armory Arm. There's only one answer. There's only one legal answer. And if you don't know it, then I can't help you. Okay, who the hell said Fossil Dyna? Why did you say Fossil Dyna? Why did you say Fossil Dyna? God damn it, dude.
Duelist Pack Yusei. Release date, February 24th, 2009. Set type, Duelist Pack. Major strategies, Synchron, Warrior. Impact, a couple of new Synchro Toolbox tools.
The answer was Colossal Fighter. Of course, the answer was Colossal Fighter.
Duels Pack Yusei, being the first set to emerge from the release purgatory, brought next to nothing new for the game, but it did bring 2 specific cards that would see play. The first of these was Tuningware, being a level 1 machine that could be considered level 2 for a Synchro Summon, and
Tuningware was cool. There's a cool deck in Edison with it, where you machine duplicate and then you draw a bunch
drew
of
the
cards.
user
It's
a
not
card
very
when it was
good,
used
but
as
it's
Synchro
fun.
material. Tuningware would specifically see experimentation alongside machine duplication, similarly to how Card Trooper was used previously, as it, with practically any tuner, allowed access to almost any generic synchro in the current pool using this combination, drawing heavily
That was a
when
fun
you did.
card.
The other card was Armory Arm, a level 4 synchro that could be equipped to a monster, boost its attack by 1000, and deal damage to the opponent anytime the equipped monster destroyed another monster in battle equal to the attack of the destroyed monster. Armory Arm would be a staple of extra decks as the
Tell me
only level
about
4 generic synchro
Colossal
for the
Fighter.
time, but also because of an OTK it could pull off in certain circumstances with Colossal Fighter. In a case where the opponent has a monster on field with 1900 or more attack, you could make both Armory Arm and Colossal Fighter, equip Armory Arm to the opponent's monster, and repeatedly slam Colossal Fighter into it, burning the opponent for 28 and reviving the Colossal Fighter each time you did. This OTK came up rarely at the time, but it was something that did come up on occasion, cementing Armory Arm and Colossal Fighter as staple pieces of the extra deck for a good time after. This release was followed by the March 1st ban list, and this list had a single goal in mind: kneecap Teledad as hard as it is necessary to end the tier 0 meta. Newly limited were Chaos Sorcerer, up from 0, Dad, down from 2, Gladiator Beast Bestiari, down from 3, Yugioh Guardian, down from 3, Mizuki, down from 3, Plague Spreader Zombie, down from 3, Card of Safe Return, down from 2, Emergency Teleport, down from 3, and Rhoda, down from 3.
This was a freaking murder at the time. This ban list was freaking murder, dude. Did you see how many cards they had to limit? God damn, man.
Newly semi-limited were Destiny Hero Malicious, down from 3, Goblin Zombie, down from 3, Green Baboon, up from 1, Ryza, up from
I will not forgive them for a Green Baboon. Still not.
1, Summoner Monk, a preemptive hit to an upcoming release, Allure of Darkness, down from 3, Destiny Draw, down from 3, Gold Sarcophagus, up from 1, Mind Crush, up from 1, and Ultimate Offering, up from 1. Lastly, Unlimited Hero Romanticore of Darkness from 2, Phantom of Chaos from 2, Twin-Headed Behemoth from 1, Book of...
There's cards on here that if you put a modern Yu-Gi-Oh player into the position and you tell them, hey, Twin-Headed Behemoth used to be on the ban list, they will not believe you. They will simply not believe you. They will think you are majorly capping. Like, what the hell? During the end phase, if this card's in the grave because it was destroyed on the field and sent there this turn, you can special summon it, but its attack and defense becomes 1000. Why the hell was that card on the ban list is what they will think, man.
With Moon from 2 and Nobleman of Crossout from 2. This list did a ton to hurt both Teledad and the competition that would have risen up around it, with Dad, Yugioh, Plague Spreader, E-Telly, Rhoda, Malicious, Allure, and Destiny Draw all being hits to the deck pure, and Mizuki, Card of Safe Return, and Goblin Zombie being hit to the deck's zombie variant as well as other zombie decks that would have risen from Dad's fall. In addition to this, Bestiari taking a hit here was entirely thanks to the meta prior to Teledad, as with Teledad gone, there would be a strong chance that Gladiator Beast would just take over again. This set the baseline for the meta moving into the first core set release of the year, and almost every player was ready for it to bring something new to shake up the increasingly stale metagame.
Ooh. Oh no,
Crimson
no,
Crisis.
not him,
Release date,
not him.
March 3rd, 2009.
I don't want to talk about him.
Core set. Major strategies, Assault Mode, Blackwing, Reactor. Impact, the birth of an icon. Crimson Crisis would end the drought far more effectively than Duelist Pack Yusei before it, as it was a follow-up to a massive ban list that upended the Tier 0 meta and brought a ton of new tools for both new strategies and older meta presences. Its highlight strategy, though, would not be an effective one, being the Assault Mode series. This series of monsters, being souped-up versions of Synchros, would reside in the main deck until you activated Assault Mode Activate while the corresponding Synchro was on field, tributing the Synchro to allow you to summon the Assault Mode variant directly from deck. If this sounds clunky, that's because it is. Even with tools like Assault Beast to get Activate easier, the entire mechanic was rough because if you drew the Assault Mode variant, it couldn't be summoned, and was simply a dead card. Even with tools to offset this like Assault Teleport, as those would be dead if you didn't brick on the bricks in your deck, meaning you've just added more bricks. As for the Assault Modes themselves, the only one of note here was Red Dragon Archfiend, as he nuked all other monsters when he attacked, but this wasn't even enough to let the strategy see play. No. The true meta strategy that would come from this instead was Black Wings, a series of winged beasts that focused on swarming the board to make synchro pushes. With its initial wave,
I don't even know why, but I always hated Black Wings back then. I just didn't like it. I don't know why. I did not like Black Wings. I didn't enjoy It was such a straightforward beatdown deck. It was kind of boring to me. I never liked it. Yeah, Gale is a cool card. I loved Gale. I played Gale in a lot of different decks, but Blackwings themselves, it was never really my thing. You know?
Received 3 main deck monsters and 1 synchro, being Sirocco, a 2000 attack level 5 that can be normaled for no tribute if your opponent controls a monster and you don't, able to combine the attacks of all Blackwings onto a single monster for a turn, Bora, who can be special summoned if you control a Blackwing and pierces, Gale, a level 3 tuner with the same swarm condition and can cut an opponent's monster's stats in half once per turn, and Armor Master, a level 7 synchro that can't be destroyed in battle, takes no battle damage, places counters on anything it attacks and doesn't kill, and can remove all of its counters from the board to drop an affected monster's attack and defense to 0 that turn. Without a doubt, Blackwing showed the most potential moving forward from this release, as while it wasn't enough now to make it a meta mainstay threat, it was potent enough to be mixed in with some already powerful dark decks and gave decks easy access to level 7 synchros, which became far more important with another release from this set. Frogs received another wave of support here in Dupe, who blocked attacking any monster other than itself, which could be paired with a second to lock all attacking, Flip-Flop Frog, who bounced monsters up to the number of face-up frogs on flip, able to flip itself back down, and Submarine, a TCG exclusive who dealt piercing damage. Of these, Dupe would see some experimentation thanks to Treeborn and Substitoad, especially since Substitoad and any other monster by itself could form a dupe lock as it became known. Another new archetype here was the Reactor Monsters, a series of monsters that burned the opponent for 800 once per turn when they activated the corresponding card type, being monsters for Summon Reactor SK, traps for Trap Reactor Wi-Fi, spells for Spell Reactor RE, and any card for Flying Fortress Skyfire. The deck never took off thanks to the simple fact that a once per turn burn effect does not carry the potential to end a game in and of itself, on top of the fact that the monsters were all fairly weak, meaning they were easy to out.
What is a dupe lock? Wait, are you serious? Okay, so a dupe lock is because dupe lock says your opponent can only attack this card. If you have 2 dupe frogs, that your opponent can't attack at all, because the one dupe frog tells them you can only attack me, and if the other one says you can only attack me, you can't attack anything. That was the dupe lock.
However, grouped with this release was also a tuner named Black Salvo, who revived a level 4 Dark Machine on normal summon, negating its effects on the field.
Salvo
this was yet another
cool
level 7 Synchro enabler, which primarily was meant to enable the new Synchro Dark Strike Fighter, a level 7 who contribute a monster to burn the opponent for its level times 200, which was, at the time, not once per turn and could be used in main phase 2. This card was, without hyperbole, one of, if not the absolute best, Synchro released in the entire 5Ds era, as it enabled any deck that could make a level 7 Synchro to OTK the opponent by tributing off your board after the battle.
Chat, take a guess. It's not even a guess, actually. But I would prefer if you guys guessed. You could just calculate it, but I want a guess. How much damage is it when 2 Dark Strike fighters attack your opponent and then tribute themselves in main phase 2? Guess. Don't calculate, guess. Okay, everyone. I don't think. Okay, yeah, it's 8K. It's 8K. I'm not sure if you guys are guessing or if you guys calculate. You probably cheated and calculated.
Battle phase to unload absurd amounts of damage, which could include itself for an additional 1400.
It's exactly 8,000.
Gladiator Beast received a massive piece of support here in Sam Knight, whose effect absolutely did not matter. What mattered about Sam Knight was the fact that it was a level 3 beast, meaning it was summonable using Rescue Cat, which enabled a combo where you summoned it and Test Tiger with 1 Rescue Cat, enabling you to immediately tag it out for any Gladiator Beast with their effect. Alien received a wave of support to attempt to make them playable in the 5Ds era here with Ammonite, a level 1 tuner that revived an alien on normal, Overlord, who could special summon itself by removing 2 A counters from the field, and could place an
Cat is, starting with this era, I was finally able to play, like, meta decks. Because Cat decks, I was finally, you know, that was my thing. I played Cat for so long, dude.
A counter on all opponents' monsters once per turn, Golgar, a level 5 synchro that could bounce all face-up spells and traps to place that many A counters on the board, and could remove 2 A counters from the board to destroy a card once per turn,
Eclipse,
Kid, a TCG exclusive that placed an A counter on any monster special summoned to the opponent's field, Code Ancient Ruins, a TCG exclusive which generates A counters when an alien is destroyed and can remove 2 A counters from the field once per turn to revive an alien, Mysterious Triangle, which popped a monster with A counters and summoned an alien from deck, and Planet Pollutant Virus, which tributed an alien to destroy all monsters with A counters on the opponent's field, then placed an A counter on any monster summoned to the opponent's field for 3 turns. Alien support here was a major revitalization of the strategy, giving the archetype a lot of power in the format, but would move to do absolutely nothing in the meta due to the clunky nature of counters as a mechanic, leading many to not approach the strategy in the first place. Debris Dragon was a level 4 tuner that revived a 500 attack or lower monster on normal summon, but could only make...
This is all from one set, dude. How do you put so much meta-relevant stuff in one set? God damn, I didn't know this set was so good.
Dragon synchros and couldn't be synchroed with a level 4. While Debris at this point would see minimal play, he was worth noting due to providing access to either Iron Chain Dragon or Black Rose Dragon with its own normal summon. Arcanite Magician was a new level 7 synchro option for spellcaster decks, providing both spell counter generation and spot removal, seeing play alongside cards from the next structure deck release. Telekinetic Power Well provided severe swarming for psychic decks, able to summon any...
This was a card that I don't remember people playing this card at the time, but then like nowadays people are playing this a lot in Edison. Like the Welladad is actually not a bad deck in Edison these days. People realize that this card's actually quite good. But I don't think people really played it much back then. At least I don't remember it.
Number of level 2 or lower psychics from the grave at the cost of a heavy sum of life points, seeing experimentation but very little success in its time. Totem Dragon was a TCG exclusive that provided
Also
2 tributes for Dragon Monster tribute summons, able to revive itself if the only monsters in grave are dragons, banishing itself when it leaves the field after being summoned this way. Lastly, OCG imports brought us niche cards to experiment with like Tethys, Yugioh, and Zeta Reticulant. In addition to the core set release,
we don't talk about Edo.
There were a couple of promos released at this point too, starting with the Shonen Jump promo for March being Chimeratech Fortress Dragon, able to be contact fused using Cyber Dragon and any number of other machines from either field, turning Cyber Dragon into the ultimate side deck tool against any machine deck, as you could now special summon it and wipe the board before even beginning your main play line.
Now this one is actually a difference between NA and EU, because this thing did not come out in EU in 2009, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure this thing is 2010 for us Europeans. This was not 2009, because Jump promos, the way it worked back in the day, it still works like that to this day with like Summon Sorceress and stuff like that. Or Link Karibo in recent years. The Jump promos, because the Shonen Jump magazine is only released in like the US with the promos, you cannot play them in Europe until they get another reprint. And that's always been like that. So Chimeratech Fortress Dragon, the first printing in the TCG was Shonen Jump promo. So we could not play it yet.
Lastly, the Duels Pack Collection Tins released on March 10th, and they would bring arguably the only good Assault Mode monster, being Stardust Dragon Assault Mode, who could tribute itself to negate anything, reviving itself at the end of the turn. This particular Assault Mode monster would spark some experimentation with the strategy thanks to an Omni Negate being worth intensive investment at the time, but it would still fail to see any major success. This period of time would feel like a lot changed, but with nothing to show for it, as the SJC circuit was still on hold following the lawsuit settlement, meaning that no events would take place between Crimson Crisis' release and the release of the next new structure deck a few weeks later.
Oh my god, Summoner Monk. Oh, yes.
Spellcaster's Command. Release date, March 31st, 2009. Set type, Structure Deck. Major strategies, Spellcasters. Impact, a new staple combo enabler. Spellcaster's Command was an interesting release at the time due to its reliance on spell counter generation, a mechanic that was consistently seeing support trickled out for it, but was seeing little to no success in the competitive space due to the clunky nature of counters. New cards...
I mean, I literally don't think there was any good cards in this structure deck outside of Summoner Monk. I don't remember any new good card from this bunch outside of Summoner Monk. Literally nothing else.
The deck brought included Endymion, the Master Magician, Disenchanter, Defender, the Magical Knight, Magical Citadel of Endymion, Spell...
FTK sometimes.
Power Grasp, and easily the best new card from this release, Summoner Monk. Monk allowed the user to discard a spell once per turn to special summon a level 4 monster from deck, which would instantly see experimentation in various strategies thanks to the ability to spam out level 4 monsters like Armageddon Knight, Dark Grepher, or Rescue Cat, which allowed you to push advantage further. As for reprints, this structure deck brought Crystal Seer, Econ, Apprentice Magician, Breaker the Magical Warrior, Book of Moon, and Giant Trunade, showing not the best reprint selection, but also not the worst, hitting some necessary cards like Breaker with its constantly fluctuating banless status. This wouldn't be the only set bringing reprints for this cycle, as just under a month later, we'd see a revision of one of the better ideas from the previous year's set releases.
Gold Series? No. Oh yeah. What's that? Gold Series 3? No, 2.
Gold Series 2009. Release date, April 21st, 2009. Set type, reprint set. Major strategies, the meta threats of 2008. Impact, a severe lowering of the price floor. Gold Series 2009 was attempt number 2 at the Gold Series formula, and in all fairness, this time it was a really effective swing. Practically every strategy that had cropped up near the end of the GX era had some form of significant reprint here, including cards for strategies that were still the top of the meta. And more importantly, while there were some short printings in the set, it was nowhere near as severe as the previous year's Gold Series, coming out to a negligible difference in pull ratios. Reprints here included Sangan, all 6 of the Monarchs, Treeborn Frog, Snipe Hunter, 6 Samurai staples, the Volcanic Engine, Necro Gardna, Elemental Heroes Captain Golden Neos Alias, Test Tiger, Dad,
series,
Prime Material Dragon, Giant Trunade, Mind Control, Future Fusion, Solemn Judgment, Bottomless, Compulse, Phoenix Wing, and Gold Sarcophagus, which
this was such an insane Gold Series. Like, this one was arguably better than the first one. And to this day, in case you ever hear me bash gold rares on stream, okay, which is one of my hobbies, admittedly, you know, bashing gold rares is one of my, it's passion. You could call it a passion of mine. But the first 2 Gold Series are based. Those hella nostalgic for me. The first 2 Gold Series actually had good looking gold rares. Maybe I'm nostalgia biased, but the first 2 Gold Series, Giga Chad. Those are cool. Those are excluded from my rants. Whenever I make fun of gold rares, the first 2 Gold Series are excluded. They are fine.
Which was its first reprint from its time as the SJC prize card. This did tremendous work for the secondary market of the game, bringing down the price of many decks in the meta, but reprints were the only change here. The May 2009 issue of Shonen Jump would bring yet another relevant promo to the field in Beast King Barbaros, a 3000 attack monster that could either be summoned with no tributes to have 1900 attack, or be summoned with 3 tributes to nuke the opponent's board. While the 3 tribute effect would almost never come up, the no tribute effect became its shining attribute, as when summoned this way, if you had a way to negate its effects, its attack would reset back up to 3000, giving skill drain beat decks a new threat to play with. This tool was on full display with SJC Anaheim a week later, being the first SJC in a long time that wasn't completely dominated by Teledad, seeing a decent spread of decks to crack the top 16. Going through the top cut, the most represented deck was easily Lightsworn, seeing 7 of the top 16, primarily thanks to its competition's repeated hits on the ban list compared to its singular
triple Lumina, triple Necrogartna, double Charge, triple Solar, double Cold Wave. God damn, man. Triple Honest. Holy shit, man. That's the reason why people cited stuff like Vaboku and Threatening Roar, because goddamn, there was no other way of stopping this deck, like, other than just deck them out sometimes, like, literally. I think Charge was at 2, otherwise this is a very questionable decision by Chaboy Jarrell Winston here, which I just saw that was pro Winston. Who remembers that? That's based. But I think the card was at 2. If it was at 3, that's crazy behavior.
Minor hit of JD to 2. The deck was still a powerhouse, seeing
but it doesn't have a marking on it. Like, it says 2 JD. No, how? Why would you play 2 charges?
Most players opting
Budget,
for cards
maybe?
like Honest
Maybe you
and
couldn't
Beckoning
find
Light
a third, because at this point in time, maybe it was still expensive. There's like no way, right? There's no way you play 2 charges. If it ain't pro, it got to go, yeah.
Advantage.
Deuces.
In a similar vein, there was also a single top from its sister deck in Twilight, which was effectively
those 3 charges.
Lightsworn with an added Dad package to give it a little more firepower, also including Phantom of Chaos to copy either Dad or JDs that were in the graveyard for instant board pressure. Gladiator Beast performed well here with 3 top spots,
What the hell is a Phantom Dragon in your Glad Beast deck?
integrating Sam Knight for Rescue Cat lines, as well as some players opting for Phantom Dragon to punish early aggression pushes. Blackwing would have its first top cut showing here of many to come, integrating the deck's access to level 7 synchros with Black Salvo and Dekoichi to easily access Dark Strike Fighter on a moment's notice.
See, and there's the Threatening Roars. That's literally, I told you this last time. We watched the 2008 video about when Lightsworn got introduced. One way to stop Lightsworn was they would set up like triple Lumina Garroth, mill freaking 25 cards on the first turn or some shit like that. And then you just set Threatening Roar, pass, next turn, they can't attack. All of the Lightsworns are mandatory to mill, they deck themselves out. Or they have to blow their own field up with like JD, if they have it. Which was one way to literally defeat Lightsworn, was just let them deck themselves out, because they would mill so crazy and so consistently.
This was a very common sight in the format, known as cat format, to have some way to access Dark Strike Fighter to clean up games, as the power of the ability to tribute off your board to burn the opponent out from a reasonable amount of life points could not be understated. Counter Fairy would also break into the top 16 here thanks mostly to Vandalgan the Dark Dragon Lord, a Shonen Jump promo from 2008 that could summon itself if you negate something with a counter trap, providing an insane amount of power behind your standard Counter Fairy game plan. Teledad had made an adjustment from its previous reckoning of the ban list, now opting for Summoner Monk lines to both access your hero.
Okay, this is I would not call this a good deck anymore at this point in time. Like, it's like, those were the kind of people that were like Dark Armed Dragon hard stands, right? They spent like $50 trillion on Dark Armed Malicious Crush Card and all that kind of stuff, right? And they just wanted to keep playing it, right? Like, from a competitive standpoint, this was not better than the other stuff, but you've already sunk your entire life savings into it, so you just keep going. That kind of angle, right? It's kind of that kind of situation.
Hero engine with Stratos, or to make easy level 8 synchros with Rose, who was a level 4 tuner. Drain Beat found revitalization here thanks to Beast King Barbaros, giving the deck easily the most powerful beater option to use under skill drain while other decks in the format suffer, adding in floodgate options like Royal Oppression to back it up further. Lastly, a combination of the previous two strategies could be found in the first place spot for this event, piloted by Jeff Jones for his first major event victory, and this would not be his last. This particular build places a heavier focus on the Destiny Hero package for Dad thanks to Defender being a 2700 defense wall with no downsides under skill drain.
Why is your side and extra deck only 14 cards? Is there cards missing? Is there information missing on this list?
And Fearmonger's effect being unaffected by...
Yeah, skill drain, that deck was more like it. That was more like it. That was better, right? Having skill drain with Defender was one better way to play the Dark Arm deck in 2000, like middle 2009. That was relatively popular as well.
By the trap. Without question, the format had been shaken up heavily by these releases, and it was about to be broken up further, as the next core set aimed to take many of the themes pushed into last month to their extremes and even beyond it to form a new meta environment.
Okay, this is Raging Battle. Raging Battle has... Oh, it has Shura. Shura is big. My headphones are dead. Okay, hold up. Okay. Fixed.
Raging Battle. Release date, May 12th, 2009. Set type, core set. Major strategies, Black Wings, Morphtronic, Kokimeru. Impact, The Rise of the Birds. Raging Battle, being the second core set of 2009, was expected to expand upon ideas established in Crimson Crisis before it, and in one particular way...
Yeah, so for the people asking why people didn't play Kalut yet, Kalut, I think Kalut, Shura, and Blizzard are all from this set. And I'm maybe also the level 6 Synchro?
Delivered in spades. That way was in further development of Black Wings, who received a major wave of support that would carve out the deck into a meta threat. This wave included Blizzard, a level 2 tuner who revived a level 4 lower Blackwing from grave on summon, Shura, who summoned a 1500 or less attack Blackwing from deck when it destroys a monster in battle, Kalut, who could be discarded to boost a Blackwing's attack by 1400 that turn, Elfin, who can be normaled without tribute.
We don't care about Elfin.
If you controlled a Blackwing and swapped an opponent's battle position when normaled, Armed Wing, a level 6 synchro with piercing and gains 500 when attacking a defense monster, and the most important of all, Black Whirlwind, which adds a Blackwing.
Okay, I almost forgot about that one. Oh my god, I hate Black Whirlwind. Oh my god, I hate Black Whirlwind. The difference at the time between your opponent opening Black Whirlwind or not opening Black Whirlwind is insane, dude. You play against Blackwing, they don't open Black Whirlwind, it doesn't even feel like a real opponent. Unironically, this is still true in Edison. If you ever play against Blackwing in Edison, if they don't open Black Whirlwind, it's not a real deck, dude. It's not a real deck. It's so easy to beat. But then they open Black Whirlwind, and they just never run out of shit, dude. It's so toxic. Also, Blizzard at the time was like the first. I want to say €15 rare. Anyone remember? I think it was very expensive. Blizzard at the time. It's like though if I think of any old rare that was ever expensive, I think Blizzard is the first one that comes to mind. That shit was expensive.
from deck to hand with less attack than a Blackwing U normal summon. Between the ability to search swarming synchro pieces, attack modulate in the damage step like how light decks had done the past year, and being able to take advantage of the growing synchro pool better than any other deck, Blackwings were destined for meta success with this wave. On the other side of things, Morphtronic received another wave of support here in Vidyon, who gains attack or defense for every equip spell on it, Scopin, a tuner that can either summon a level 4 Morphtronic from hand for synchro summons, or make itself level 4, Power Tool Dragon, the boss monster of the strategy and cover card for the set, who can reveal 3 equip spells in deck once per turn to add 1 random one to hand, Double Tool CD, which could only equip to a higher level Morphtronic or Power Tool, giving it 1000 attack and effect negation on your turn and attack redirection on the opponent's turn, and Junk Box, which was a temporary monster reborn for the archetype. The deck was still heavily not meta, but with this support, the previous equip beatdown strategy seemed to solidify as the direction the deck would take moving forward, although Power Tool Dragon became one of those cards that was an FTK enabler thanks to its very generic search of any equip spell. Earthbound Immortals were a new series of boss monsters that all shared the same ability to—
Power Tool is pretty cool. It's a shame that it's kind of always only been like abused in different situations for certain stuff. Like, for example, the Supervised deck from like a little later is pretty damn cool.
Attack directly, as well as the condition of being destroyed automatically if you controlled no field spell, all of which were considered remarkably bad. Kawaki Meru was a new archetype themed around a series of unusually powerful effects on monsters at the cost of either discarding an—
Okay, chat. What's the card that comes to mind when you see Kawaki Meru Doom? There's one card that should come to mind. Old heads. Old heads in chat, we need you. I guess it's 2 cards, really. I guess it is 2 cards. Yeah, it's a 3-card combo. Yeah, Gallus, Birdman. Yeah, true. Well done. Gallus, Birdman is the combo. You got it.
Iron Core of the Kawaki Meru each turn, or by revealing a monster of the same type in hand. While as an archetype the series would flop hard, various pieces from it would find their way into strategies focused around their attributes over time, specifically with Guardian for rocks and Drago for dragons out of this set.
Yeah, these 2 cards were phenomenal for Kawaki Meru. I'm so glad that Kawaki Meru had these 2 tools at their hands. They were definitely never used in other strategies to either floodgate the opponent or negate any monster effects. Right. My favorite Kawaki Meru support.
As their utility could be applied as long as you had a monster of that type in hand to reveal. Deep Sea Diva was a level 2 tuner that summoned a level 3 or lower Sea Serpent from deck on summon.
14 years ago.
Intended to be used alongside Spined Gilman, either as an offensive push of their own,
or
for
Gilman,
easy access to Sea Dragon Lord Kishilnadon, who gained attack anytime a level 3 or lower monster is sent to grave while
always draw Gilman.
Dragon strategies would receive a couple of new tools in Lava Dragon, who acted like a pseudo rescue cat for dragons, requiring 1 target from hand and 1 from grave, Exploder Dragon Wing, who can destroy anything weaker than it that it battles to burn the opponent for that monster's attack, and Trident Dragon, who can destroy up to 2 of your own cards on summon to gain that many more attacks that turn, none of which would make—
Can anyone here explain to me why the hell there's an I in this card's name? And I'm not talking about this I. This I I'm fine with. This I I'm on board with this one. The second one I have issues with. The hell is a Dragion? The hell is a Dragion?
make a significant impact. 1-for-1 could send a monster from hand to grave to summon any level 1 from the deck, which was not too useful in this moment, but would eventually be one of the better synchro—
Okay, I would have rather unread that message. It's a Dwagion Uwu. God damn it.
enablers in the format. Forbidden Chalice could negate a monster's effect that turn by making it gain 400, allowing use as either effect negation, a battle trick, or in the case of Drain Beat, both. Trap Stun was a new tool that prevented traps from activating that turn,
good cards,
which would see play in decks susceptible to battle traps like Gladiator Beasts.
1-for-1
Lastly,
Chalice,
Snowman
Trap
Eater was an
Stun.
OCG
Snowman
import that operated
Eater,
similarly
yes.
to Raikou, popping a monster on field when flipped, with the trade-off being it could only pop face up.
Chad, who knew? Be honest. Who knew that Snowman Eater, the monster, is not the snowman? It's not the actual snowman that's the monster, right? It's this little thing down here. It's this little Sangan looking ass under the snowman.
Monsters, as opposed to anything, had a stronger defense and didn't mill when flipped. In the same period, we would also see a couple of video game releases with promos. The first of which was the Wii racing game Wheelie Breakers, which brought the Skullflame series of cards, none of which would be useful and were forgotten just as fast as they came out. The other, and far more impactful, was the DS game Stardust Accelerator, which brought the first pieces of a new archetype known as Infernity, which all gained effects based on having no cards in hand, with this batch including Archfiend, Dwarf...
We're gonna go back to this one when we look at the 2010 recap eventually. I don't think that's out yet, but we'll come back to Infernities.
...and Guardian. Of these three, Archfiend was the only notable one, able to special summon itself if drawn into a hand with no other cards, and searched an Infernity card when special summoned with no cards in hand, which would become an integral piece of the strategy when the remainder of its cards...
out of nowhere has ruined multiple friendships. Archfiend top deck out of nowhere, that has to have been one of the most prevalent cases of ruining a Yu-Gi-Oh friendship back in the day, dude. There's no way around it. Everyone has at least one friendship in their, like, you know, in their early Yu-Gi-Oh days that's been broken by a top deck Archfiend at some point. 100%.
Cards eventually arrived. With these, we'd round out the month of May with no new tournament results, with the community really starting to feel the effects of the lack of competitive events, although some were just around the corner.
Road Warrior. Oh, that's a structure deck, starter deck, right? I think.
Starter deck 2009. Yeah. Release date June 6, 2009.
Herbellum.
Set type starter deck. Major strategies X-Saber. Impact, the cat is back. This year's starter decks had an interesting impact on the game as a whole that we really haven't seen out of a non-first of the era starter deck either before or since. And it entirely comes down to the inclusion of a single card, X-Saber Airbellum.
Yep.
So for most who were looking at this year, Airbellum, alongside its siblings in the X-Saber archetype, were not due out for us until November with Hidden Arsenal, which would reprint the first set of dual terminal cards, even though the cards had not yet been released stateside, even in the dual terminal cabinets. Airbellum.
This freaking structure deck, starter deck common was like €5 because everyone that bought this structure deck only wanted freaking Airbellum. That was the one card you needed out of this starter deck. Everything else was kind of irrelevant. You know, Airbellum, sure, but everyone only needed one. Road Warrior, you didn't need at all at the time because Quick Draw wasn't a thing yet. Freaking Airbellum, that was the card everyone wanted from the starter
and Gotham's Emergency Call were all printed here first, however.
Emergency Call also didn't matter at the time because X-Saber at the time wasn't a thing yet. X-Saber only becomes a thing until like a year or two later. At the time, you only cared about Airbellum being the best target for Rescue Cat,
making them legal to use prior to the rest of the archetype. And honestly speaking, Airbellum was probably the best of them to release anyways because it was a level 3 beast tuner, making it summonable with Rescue Cat. In addition to this, it also hand-ripped a card from the opponent when it dealt battle damage, meaning summoning 2 with Cat in some situations could result in a massive hand rip. This would be clearly seen with the European Championships a couple of weeks later on June 27th, where a new deck found its way.
Who won Euros in 2009? Was it Vittorio?
Into the top cut in Cat control, even taking the event piloted by Vittorio Victor, which aimed to use the various Cat targets like Airbellum, Dark Panther, and Raiko to make synchro plays and generally control the game state alongside heavier control options like Cyber Valley. This would also, unfortunately, be the only Nationals level event with full coverage from this period, as many of the other standard National Scales events at the time are difficult to find full coverage for outside of the odd top 16 deck list. With that said, there were a couple more releases between Euros and the World Championship, but with their
Are we in Edison format yet? No, Edison, we're still like a half a year away from Edison.
Content lineups, it was safe to assume nothing was going to change by then.
Exchange? Duelist
Pack
Premium
Yugi.
Pack. No.
Release date, July 7th, 2009. Set type, Duelist Pack. Major strategies, random cards Yugi played. Impact, reprinting a couple of cards.
Oh, it's reprints. Okay.
Duelist Pack Yugi was the first Duelist Pack ever to bring absolutely no new cards along with its release, purely being a collection of cards used by Yugi in the anime, which did allow the set to reprint a couple of cards that had only 1 or 2 printings prior to this, but nothing major beyond that. Notable reprints here included Marshmallow, The Gadgets, Brain Control, Exchange, Mirror Force, and Monster Reborn. This would be the entire legacy of this set, leading into the last pack before Worlds 3 weeks later. Retro Pack 2. Release date, July 28th, 2009. Set type.
Those are cards that I respect those cards when I see them, you know? Those are cards, I look at those cards and I'm like, I respect that card. I respect Gores, I respect Baboon, I respect Light and Darkness Dragon.
Reprint
Those
set.
ring a bell,
Major strategies, the impactful promos of the last year. Impact, providing the EU with powerful promos.
I kneel.
Retro Pack 2,
Yeah.
similar to the first, was originally going to be an EU exclusive set, but was also released
I bow down. I bow down to the power of these cards at their
roughly
times.
a week later. But the primary impact this had was giving the EU player base access to a variety of cards that were only available as promos in the US that were otherwise illegal to play in the EU. Reprints here included Gores, Light and Darkness Dragon, and Green Baboon, alongside the first ever printing of Dragon Master Knight in the TCG, although this card was not.
This was my Necros Kaleidoscope target for a while during Necros format, until I realized Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon is the way to go. But this one was also kind of cool. LED Ace, thank you for the 7 months. Appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Impactful in the slightest. The 2009 World Championships would take place just over a week later on August 9th, and with it,
2009, I think Blackwing won Worlds.
we'd see a powerful performance out of
I'm not
Gladiator
sure what the
Beast
name
specifically,
was.
seeing Pure take
believe
4
an
of the top
OCG
8 with an
duelist?
additional
I'm
cat
not
variant
sure.
to boot. However, Gladiator Beast would not win the day, as the event was taken by Benjamin Tai Hung Hui of Singapore playing Blackwings, playing Icarus Attack at its full 3 copies to take advantage of the swarming potential provided by the Blackwing effects. With this event in the books, Konami's takeover of the TCG was officially complete, which was marked by 2 specific events. The first of these was the first ever Turbo Pack, which took the place of the Champion Packs.
Turbo Pack 1. Doom Caliber Knight? No. That doesn't sound right. Is it Doom Caliber Knight? I might be. I know that all of the Turbo Packs had 1 Ulti, 1 Ultra, and then some Supers. The Ulti was a reprint, and the Ultra was a new card. I think. And I
Given
think
to
that
official
one
tournament
may
stores
have
to
been
use as
Doom
prizing
Caliber
for locals, and aimed at providing reprints to cards that were competitively viable and harder to get, with the first one reprinting Doom Caliber Knight. The previous SJC...
well, I mean, it wasn't new, but it was a jump promo previously, so I count that as new. From my perspective at the time, as a 14-year-old, maybe at this time. Oh no, July 28. Still 13-year-old. To me, that was a new card, not a reprint.
Prize card, and Crush Card Virus, being its first printing since the Gold Series short prints. The second was the first SJC since April, being SJC Indianapolis, taking place on the same day on August 15th, and we'd see just how much the meta had changed since the previous SJC. Most of the faces here were identical to their showings in the previous European Championship, with one major exception, being the rise in Salvo dad lists. Taking inspiration from the Salvo and Dekoichi inclusion in previous...
I love how... one of my favorite cards from that time as well was Cyber Valley. Like, Cyber Valley is one of my favorite cards ever to this day. I love that they were all using Cyber Valley so much during that time. I love Cyber Valley. And Salvo Dad is in general. It was such a dope deck, dude.
Blackwing lists, Salvo Dad aimed to mix the power of Dad decks with the explosive finish that was normal summon Salvo for Darkstrike Fighter, able to burn for severe amounts of damage thanks to the higher level darks you could play with. Philly Luna would take the event with Blackwings, marking his 4th SJC title, which would also mark...
This is also around a time where every single name rings a bell for me. Like, all of those. Even though a lot of them are no longer around in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like all of those names...
his place in history as the player to win the most SJCs in the entirety of the game's history, as the tournament series would be discontinued in 2010 to make way for the YCS structure we know today. The final event of August this year was the release of the Collectible Tins 2009 Wave 1, which brought Power Tool Dragon and the upcoming Ancient Fairy...
Did anyone pay attention how long it took for them to reprint the frickin' cover card of Raging Battle? What was it, like... Raging Battle, May 12th, 2009. 2 months. 2 months until the cover card of Raging Battle was in a tin box. And honestly, I genuinely think they should go back to a practice like this one. I don't really see a reason why cards like Pot of Prosperity take so long to be reprinted. It should just be... That should just be the practice. But I don't want to open that whole thing up right now, but it's astounding to me looking back at this sort of stuff when comparing it to the day sometimes. But
Dragon as promos, which leads us to
Flamvel Dog.
Ancient Prophecy. Release date September 1st, 2009. Set type Core Set. Major strategies Blackwing, Fortune Lady, X Saber. Impact, laying the groundwork for future success.
Yeah.
Ancient Prophecy was the third core set of the year, and while the meta wouldn't change rapidly from its releases like how the last couple of sets did, it would spawn a couple of new decks into the space thanks to a couple of specific cards. The first of these cards was Vayu the Emblem of Honor, which was the only Blackwing of note from this release, unable to be used for synchro summons normally, but was instead able to banish itself and one other Blackwing from grave to cheat out a Blackwing synchro with its effects negated. This would occasionally be splashed into Blackwings as a comeback option, but for the most part would be played in its own new deck known as
Yeah, so in regular Blackwings, you would use one Vayu because if you summon it off of Shura, it was an okay target for it. Also, it was like the lowest attack you could go with Black Whirlwind. So sometimes when you normal summon Blizzard, you don't have a target for Whirlwind because you don't play anything smaller than Blizzard, which is 1300. So you would play one Vayu just in case, just because you would get free value off of it. But other than that, it didn't have that much of an impact. Outside, of course, like, I mean, nowadays, everyone who's ever played Edison is like, Vayu Turbo is a household name. At the time, wasn't super popular, but people played with it. People played Vayu Turbo decks back in the day already.
Vayu Turbo, which took many cues from the previous dad lists, loading up the grave with copies of Vayu and Sirocco using cards like Armageddon Knight and Dark Grepher to use Vayu's effect, able to summon out Armed Wing and eventually Armor Master by using Vayu with dead Armed Wings. The Fortune Ladies made their debut.
What does Vayu Turbo do? Well, exactly what they just said. You just dump Vayu and Sirocco into the graveyard and you summon the Armed Wings for free and just apply pressure with that.
Here too, a series of spellcasters whose attack is equal to their level times a multiplier and gained a level every turn, with Light being worth noting as she special summoned a Fortune Lady from deck if removed from the field by card effect. While this wouldn't be particularly good now, as the only target to summon with her effect was Fire, who popped a monster on special summon and burned the opponent, which wasn't the greatest payoff for the investment.
What does Edison format mean and stand for? I'm a Master Duel boomer only. I don't think there is a thing like that, like Master Duel boomers don't exist yet. The game has not been around for long enough for someone to be a Master Duel boomer. But Edison format, okay, Edison format refers to the format from, I think it's April 2010. April 2010 is what's called Edison format. It's called that because there was only one major event during that time period, and it was Shonen Jump series Edison. That's why people call it Edison format. But the correct way to put it would be April 2010 format.
The strategy would
Which
get
is
better
one of the
with
most
time.
popular
Kawaki Meru
Time
saw a
Wizard
couple of new
formats
additions
at
here
the
with
time.
Boulder, who
Currently.
searched a Kawaki Meru monster or core on battle destruction, and Crusader, who searched a Kawaki Meru when it destroyed a monster in battle. Fishboard Blaster was a level 1 fish tuner,
my
able to
God.
special
I
summon
was
itself
not
from
ready
grave
for
by discarding
Fishboard.
a card while you control a level 3 or lower water monster. While not
I
too
was
great
not
now,
ready for
Fishboard
Fishboard
Blaster would
Blaster.
become a major piece of an FTK later in the era that would earn its current position on the ban list. X-Saber received a couple of boosting support pieces here as a part of the X-Saber line, and Faltrell, who
love
could special summon
X-Sabers.
himself if you control two
X-Sabers, I love to this day the deck from X. They don't get good until late 2010, but I love X-Sabers, man. I
X-Saber
love
monsters,
X-Sabers.
and can special summon an X-Saber from grave once per turn. Gotham's, a level 9
The
synchro
deck
that
I
could
played
tribute
at
an
my
X-Saber
very
to rip a
first
card from the opponent's
YCS,
hand,
which was YCS
and the TCG
Broken.
exclusive
I think
Full Helm Knight,
2010
a
or
level 3 tuner who can
2011.
negate an attack targeting an X-Saber once while on field, and revives an X-Saber from grave that destroys a defense position monster in battle. X-Sabers would see serious experimentation from here thanks to the already popular performance of Air Bellum with Rescue Cat, but wouldn't break into the meta contention quite yet with this support. Flamvel Fire Dog would be the first of the upcoming Flamvel archetype, able to summon a fire monster with 200 defense from deck when it destroys something in battle, which
Such
is
a
set up
cool
for the
card.
archetype's key spell Rekindling, which revives as many 200 defense fire monsters as possible. Fire Dog was recognizably good, but simply lacked a good target to summon at this time, but it would get one soon enough.
Yep.
Ancient Fairy Dragon was the cover card of the set and held a few utility effects, able to pop the active field spell to gain 1,000 life points and search a new one, and could special summon a level 4 or lower monster from hand once per
This
turn.
card-
At the time, this was considered one of the worst of the 5 Signer Dragons that
Yeah, it was not actually that good, which is funny considering it was the only one that ended up getting banned, I think, out of all the Signer Dragons. Because at the time, field spells weren't that big of a deal. And like it just wasn't that good. Like special summoning from your hand wasn't the biggest deal ever. The first time, like the people played this card at the time already when Black Rose got limited. You would play it as a target for like summoning with the Bree Dragon, like as a one of, just because it had a big booty and you could just summon it with the Bree and sit on it, and that was good. Sometimes you could pop your opponent's field spells, which was okay. But the first time the card actually saw like competitive play because of its effect I think, was Dragon Rulers even. Right? That was the first time you actually used it because you wanted to pop field spells and search a new one, like with like Dragon Ravine not being once per turn, which is like, that is 4 years later, right? That's 2013 that people use Ancient Fairy Dragon because its effect is actually good, right? At the time, it was just there. It had the highest defense for a level 7 synchro, which was sometimes important. And it was a dragon for Debris Dragon.
5Ds is named after, but would eventually, with changes in game design, become the absolute best. Ancient Sacred Wyvern was a new boss for light
Also
strategies,
a good card.
being a level 7 synchro that gained or lost attack equal to the difference between yours and your opponent's life
Light
points.
Tuner was very
able
hard,
to push
though.
a lead much further if you were ahead, or being downright useless if you were behind. Being
Shadows,
one of
thank
the
you,
most
Semlas.
win more cards ever. Solidarity was a new tool for beatdown decks specializing
That
in a
was
single
used
type of monster,
gadgets and
boosting the
shit.
board by
They
800
would use
attack
that
if all
card.
monsters in gray were the same
liked
type,
that card.
seeing some experimentation. Fossil Dig was effectively Rhoda for dinosaurs, which wasn't good now,
That's
but would see
Ancient
play
Prophecy?
anytime dinosaurs became meta relevant.
God damn.
Lastly, Elemental Hero Gaia was an OCG import
Ooh,
that
that
could be
was
splashed into hero beat decks to summon using Miracle Fusion, able to cut an opponent's attack in half and add that amount to Gaia's own attack until the end of the turn. Accompanying this pack, a new ban list was released the same day on September 1st, marking the end of cat format by hitting many of the pivotal pieces remaining in the meta.
One
Newly
cat?
banned were Dark Strike Fighter, being the first ban list since its release and shockingly being gone that fast. Card of Safe Return, which had overstayed its welcome at this point, Monster Reborn, as it was sort of collateral for a release later in the list, and Crush Card Virus, as the card had terrorized the format for far too long at this
Finally.
point. Newly limited were Black Rose Dragon, Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind, Demise, Mindmaster, Rescue Cat, Summoner Monk,
Yep.
Cold Wave,
Yep.
Mind Control,
Yep.
1-for-1,
Yep.
Call the Haunted,
Yep.
and Solemn Judgment.
Yep.
Newly semied were Chaos Sorcerer, Lone
Yep.
Fire Blossom,
Yep.
Mizuki, and
Yep.
Bottomless.
Yep.
Lastly, unlimited were Breaker the Magical Warrior, DD Warrior Lady, Green Baboon, Ryza, Destiny Draw, and Fissure. In addition to the
It's crazy how fast they backpedal on like something like the Destiny
Warrior,
Draw, right?
DD
They
Warrior Lady,
just
Green Baboon,
got
Ryza,
rid
Destiny Draw.
of Dark Armed, like the ban list before, and they're like, no, quickly bring back D-Draw, bring back D-Draw. It's so fascinating.
and Fissure. In addition to
Because
this,
these days, cards stay on the ban list for so freaking long.
Shonen Jump would release a new promo card for the month of September, being Tragodia, a monster that can special summon
Oh
itself when
my
you take battle
God,
damage, similarly to
Tragodia.
Doors, gaining attack and defense for each card in your hand, can discard a monster once per
Such a
turn to steal
cool
an opponent's
card.
monster of the same level, and can change its own level to match any monster in your graves once per turn. Tragodia was instantly experimented with thanks to being pseudo-gores that you didn't have to have an empty board to summon, seeing play on and off throughout the era. SJC Orlando would be the first testing grounds for the new meta landscape on September
9 Lightsworn, Zombie Teledad, Blackwing, Vayu Turbo, Twilight, Phantom Turbo, Cat Control. Is this the one that Vince won?
26th, and with it, we
Was it
see a new trend
Orlando?
in the format. Lightsworn was the new top deck in town, as both Pure and Twilight variants would take the majority of top cut spots for this period of the game's history. Zombie Teledad was the newest
No.
pivot the deck took, combining the shell of what zombies
Oh, wait,
were
maybe it
after the
was.
recent ban list with the Dad core to form a fairly powerful deck that could take games shockingly fast with the right setup. Vayu Turbo would see its first top here, seeing mostly a Chaos Dad core behind it, but also playing both Dimensional Alchemist and Burial from a Different Dimension,
Burial is a crazy powerful card with Vayu in like going hand in hand.
to cycle used Vayus back into rotation, making it all the way up to second place at this event. First place would be claimed by Rodrigo Tagores on Black Wings,
Rodrigo,
also
dude.
choosing to tech in both Vayu as well as Dark Grepher to access the same Vayu Turbo line when needed. As sort of a more minor point, Ancient Prophecy Special Edition released on October 8th following this SJC. While up until now I've made little mention of the Special Edition sets, as they've been effectively the same pack as before with reprinted promos included, this time was slightly different, as the card being reprinted was Red Eyes Wyvern, which meant that now it was legally able to be played in US tournaments thanks to having a US legal printing. SJC Austin would follow this on October 17th, and we'd see similar results with Lightsworn and Twilight
I get why they're skipping. I get why they're skipping the special editions in the recap because they didn't bring new cards to the metagame. However, for me, I was kind of hoping they would talk about them because for me, the reprints at the time, it was actually super impactful as to what was available to me as a freaking 13 or 14-year-old, as to what kind of decks I could actually play, right? Because there were a couple decks that I was not able to afford when they were at their fullest power because they didn't have any reprints yet. For example, Gladiator Beasts, right? When Gladiator Beasts were first meta, Heraklinos was... I I never owned a Secret Rare Heraclinos back then because it was like super, super expensive. And it got a reprint in some special edition. The same is true for Lightsworn. I played a lot of Lightsworn back in the day, but only after the reprints, which was right around this time actually that we're talking about right now in this video. It's like Charge of the Light Brigade was super duper expensive as a secret rare. So when that got reprinted as a super rare in, I think it was Duelist Genesis Special Edition, which we didn't even talk about, that was huge for me. And then, believe it or not, we talked about Turbo Pack 1 a little bit ago in the video. Turbo Pack 1, I think it's Turbo Pack 1 or 2 that has Judgment Dragon as ultimate rare. And funnily enough, nowadays, the ultimate rare Judgment Dragon is something you literally cannot even afford. Like the ultimate Judgment Dragon is like 350 or some shit like that. Some off the charts number, and way more expensive than the secret rare. Today, ultimate rare JD is way more expensive than secret rare. Back in the day, not the case. Back in the day, ultimate rare reprint in the turbo pack meant that the card would become affordable. Believe it or not, ultimate rare JD from turbo pack back in the day was $20, $25. I don't know why, but the ultimate rares from the tournament packs, they were not as big of a deal back then. So nowadays, a card like Kurikara right now, Kurikara was announced as an ultimate rare for the next OTS pack. That's not going to make it affordable. That's not going to make it affordable at all. It's probably going to be more expensive than the secret rare, if anything, right? But back in the day, it wasn't like that. Someone in chat is saying it was maybe 40, not 20. I don't remember the exact number. I just know that compared to what it used to be, it was crazy cheap in comparison. Like secret rare JD before the reprint was like 100 plus, and then it was 20, 30, 40. It doesn't matter exactly. Like it doesn't really change the point. It was now affordable in comparison to what it was before, especially since at the time of the reprint, I'm pretty sure it was already semi-limited, so you only needed 2. So instead of having to spend like hundreds on that, it was like, I want to say maybe I got mine for 30. That's the number I have in my head, but whatever.
Like filling out the top ranks. Although we'd also see a phase we haven't seen in some time reappear. Chaos Control reappeared with 2 of the top 16 spots here.
Chaos, I don't know about you, but Chaos was one of the decks that was it never felt like it was the best deck of the format, but people always went back to Chaos after every single ban list at the time. Every time a ban list dropped between like 2009, 2010, like after Teledad was killed, people would always go back to some Chaos build with Dark Armed and Chaos Sorcerer. Every single time after this, like 2009, 2010, every single time ban list drops, you would play some different version of Raiko, Dimensional Alchemist, Chaos Sorcerer, Dark Armed, Caius, that kind of jazz, right? That was we always went back to that. Like in the beginning of the format, ban list just dropped. You have no idea what to play in 2010 or 2009. Play Chaos.
Mostly thanks to the semi-limiting of Chaos Sorcerer, making it possible to mix the previous Dad core with some other light-focused staples like Dimensional Alchemist and Raiko to bolster the deck's strength. Chris Bowling would take first place here with Twilight, being his second major event title after the US Nationals the previous year, similarly taking advantage of the newly semied Chaos Sorcerer to completely drop Dark Armed Dragon from the list. With Austin in the books, that leaves just 3 more set releases and 1 more SJC for 2009, and the next structure deck was sure to change something, just not.
Did you like Synchro era or XYZ era better? I think I'm probably biased because of nostalgia, but I want to say Synchro. However, I did definitely have, like, during Synchro format, I definitely had the opportunity to play better decks because I was older and I had I could travel to tournaments and all that. So like I definitely was playing the game more and probably even enjoying it more during XYZ era. But the Synchro era, as it is like my first era of actually playing the game at a somewhat competitive level, is just something that has a special place in my heart. So I think I would still give Synchro era the benefit of nostalgia in that comparison. Like the XYZ era, I super enjoyed and also got super competitive doing that. But the Synchro era just, yeah, I don't know. But they're both super cool for me.
Warrior Strike. Release date, October 27th, 2009. Set type, Structure Deck. Major strategies, Gemini. Impact, useless in its time, sleeper in retrospect. The Warrior Strike Structure Deck is really an odd topic knowing what we know now about it. In its time, it was considered to be one of the worst structure decks of its era, bringing support to the Gemini subtype with Evocator Chevalier, Featherizer, Gemini Soldier, Hidden Armory, Phoenix Gearfried, and Supervise. While not appreciated in its time, retro format lookbacks in the past year have actually discovered this structure deck may have been far more powerful than initially expected, mostly thanks to the interaction between Gemini Soldier and the trap Reinforced Truth from
This deck is not good. This deck, if anyone tells you this deck is good in Edison format, don't believe them. They are lying to you. It's not good. The only good card out of this structure deck is Evocator Chevalier, and that's not even a really good card. It's like it was kind of played sometimes in Hero Beat versions because it had a synergy with Gemini Spark. But that's it. This deck, the Gemini deck, is straight up ass.
Ancient Prophecy, able to quickly establish it with its effect to control the game state.
Hidden Armory was
Unfortunately,
a good card.
hindsight is 2020, so this will most likely be the last time we're talking about this deck for a really long time due to the stigma that Gemini is a bad mechanic. Which it is, it just wasn't as bad as people thought. Reprints in this time included Exiled Force, DD Warrior Lady, Card Trooper, Mind Control, Burden of the Mighty, MST, Rhoda, and Dark Bribe, with some of these being the first easy access reprint they've received ever. This structure may have been forgotten in its time, but the set that directly followed by far would not be, as while many of its strategies fell flat, some of the staple synchros it brought would completely rule the game for years to come.
Oh, Hidden Arsenal 2. Oh my god. No, this is 1, right?
Hidden Arsenal. Release date, November 10th, 2009. Set type, deck building set. Major strategies, dual terminal wave 1. Impact, revitalization of the extra deck. Hidden Arsenal was the official pack release and legalization of the previously announced dual terminal exclusive cards. For those who are unfamiliar, dual terminal was an arcade-style cabinet that was originally debuted at Comic-Con in August of 2008, which aimed to do a fast-paced style arcade version of Yu-Gi-Oh, rewarding a random card from its card pool to players for each playthrough. However, the cabinets were also slowly receiving their own unique storyline, known as the Dual Terminal series, which would occasionally debut cards early in the cabinets that would become legal upon their wide release later with the Hidden Arsenal packs. At this time, the first wave of Dual Terminal was a bit behind Hidden Arsenal's release, not being officially released until early 2010, so while the legality of cards wasn't an issue now, outside of a single card that it printed in a previous wave, it would become a more major point as we moved into 2010. In the meantime, Hidden Arsenal would bring with it 6 new archetypes to the game. However, these were archetypes we had actually already seen on and off at this point through their inclusion in other sets.
Thank you so much
Each
for
of these archetypes spanned one of the 6 attributes, and for the most part focused on their synchro boss monsters with a single exception. The first of these was Ice Barrier, water monsters primarily aimed at stunning out opponents to make their boss
Literally 3 good Ice Barrier cards have ever been made. Brionac, Gungnir, and Trishula. The archetype has like 50, 60, 70, 80 cards. It's honestly impressive how they've managed to make every single Ice Barrier card complete garbage outside of those 3. Actually 4. Duloran, you guys are right. Duloran is also okay. The synchros were good. Everything else strictly into the trash. Whenever, like never a good card outside of the synchros in Ice Barrier. It's honestly impressive how they managed to handcraft them so carefully to be so terrible, every single one of them.
Bionic Dragon of the Ice Barrier, a level 6 synchro that could discard cards to bounce that many cards from field to hand any number of times in a turn. This was the first of many synchros in the set to actually have powerful effects on a generic body, and there was no requirements to summon Bionic or almost any of the synchro bosses here, meaning that practically all of them would see some form of extra deck staple play moving forward from here, with Bionic being arguably tied for the most useful. The second archetype was Mist Valley, a series of wind monsters focused around bouncing cards to hand for swarming and effect usage. Their boss, Mistworm, was a level 9 synchro requiring
Mistworm is the boss monster of Mist Valley? Is that true? That I have never heard in my life. I mean, they're both called Mist, but it's not called Mist Valley. Well, today I learned.
3 materials that bounced up to 3 cards from field to hand on summon. While not quite as stable as Bryonic, Mistworm would see significant play as one of the biggest useful synchros you could make to swing a game in your favor. Next up were Flamvels, a series of fire monsters with 200 defense that we've actually already seen before with their cards Fire Dog and Rekindling in the previous core set. Their synchro, Uruquizaz, was a level 6 that dealt piercing, which wasn't quite as useful as his
Uruquizaz? Is that how you say it? I always called it Uruquizaz.
contemporaries, but more importantly, the set brought Flamvel Magician. While its effect meant literally nothing to an average player, as it's purely there for the lore of the dual terminal cards, what was important was that it was a level 4 fire tuner with 200 defense, meaning you could summon it with Fire Dog's effect to access a level 8 synchro in main phase 2, and make Rekindling a free synchro summon later in the duel. This fact alone would have Magician see play for a period of time after this, purely as one of the most reliable ways into Stardust Dragon.
Dog, Magician, and
with their monsters Air, Bellum, and Bellum. Yeah, we've already seen these. X-Saber kind of blew its load early by releasing its best cards in the year's starter deck, so unfortunately they received no new useful tools here. Following that disappointment was Ally of Justice, a series of dark machines that gained specific benefits when dealing with light monsters, which was so niche in its application that it was completely useless outside of one card of theirs that didn't have such a niche use. Ally of Justice Catastor was their synchro boss, a level 5 that destroyed any non-target battled, instantly becoming the end-all level 5 synchro target in the game and being tied with Bryonic for the best card of the set. Lastly were the Worms, who didn't have a synchro boss and were a set of lackluster light reptiles that were either flip monsters or supported flip monsters, seeing no relevant play on release.
Worms, when did Worms become, like, good? What was it, 2012? No, 2013. There was a time where you could play Worms with, I think it was when they released, it was Worm Xex, Worm Yagan, and the trap card, the Nebula Meteorite. Yeah.
SJC Columbus would take place less than a week later on November 4th.
They spent so many ban lists to get rid of Teledad, and then on the very next ban list, they're like, let's bring some stuff back for it, and then it's or the best deck again. This is just like so funny to me that they're like, Teledad has been meta for 1.5 years. We're gonna kill it on a ban list, and then the next ban list, we're gonna bring it back. It suffered enough. Let's bring it back.
14th, and a couple of changes were noticeable immediately. For starters, the Hidden Arsenal synchros had made their way into the meta without issue, seeing Catastor, Bryonic, or Mistworm show up in almost every extra deck in some capacity. Secondly, Zombie Teledad had a seriously powerful performance here, revitalizing the deck.
Let's bring back Mizuki Eater 2. Let's bring back Destiny Draw the 3. I wonder what's gonna happen. Surely people are not gonna just whip out Teledad again.
Back with cards like Diamond Dude to fuel card draw and Caius to form dark pushes with its banish effect. Diva Zombie would be a new face on the block here.
There we go.
Use Diva to summon 2 level 2 tuners to the board.
Oh my god, double Mizuki, triple Burial. My god.
Mix with your zombies to make quick and easy synchro pushes and climbs.
Double
now
foolish.
Able to make Bryonic with a Diva and a zombie to bounce the board.
It's so trippy. It's tripping me up to see double Foolish. It's tripping me up to see double Foolish. Danny X, thank you for the 3 months. Appreciate you. The ads, the thing has changed since I got the Partner Plus thingy. I'm not exactly sure why. I didn't change anything in the settings, but I'll look into it.
Then use Bryonic and a Diva to climb into a level 8 like Stardust or Red Dragon.
But there's a way how you just don't get any ads and support the streamer man at the same time, right? I'm just checking. There's a way to do that, right?
Archfiend. Vincent Rolambomi Adana would win the day with Twilight,
is the one.
Opting for both Chaos Sorcerer and Dad Fruits, but also notably playing
This is the French Twilight, is what it was called at the time. French Twilight introduced playing Tragodia and Chaos Sorcerer in Lightsworn, basically. That was the thing.
3 Tragodia to bolster his dark count, showing the power of this battle hand trap. This would be the last SJC of the year.
It's crazy how nothing out of Lightsworn is on the ban list yet, except for JD, for like over a year.
the last core set of the year around the corner, the year would be coming to a close as the shifting
Please pronounce the last name. Well, Ralambomi Adana. What do you mean?
from the corporate side of the game slowed the development of the metagame around it.
This was not that good of a set. What is that? Stardust Overdrive?
Stardust Overdrive. Release date, November 17th, 2009. Set type, core set. Major strategies, Synchron, Fortune Lady, Reptilian. Impact, nothing in the short term, a lot of one-offs for the long game. Stardust Overdrive was the final core set of 2009, and while it brought nothing...
It had some good stuff, but I don't think it's comparable to the other stuff in the era. It's definitely the worst one out of the ones we've seen, out of the core sets, I think.
To change the immediate future of the metagame, it brought so many one-off cards that would shape the near future of the game that it's hard to overlook. Quick Draw Synchron was a new tuner to add to the Synchron pool, able to consider itself any Synchron tuner for the summoning of a Synchro requiring one, but couldn't be used for any other Synchros. While at this point, the Synchron Synchros weren't all that impressive, Quick Draw would grow more useful as more and more powerful Synchron Synchros emerged in the coming months. Level Eater was a level 1 that could summon itself from grave by reducing the level of a 5 or higher monster by 1, which wasn't too useful now, seeing some play in Monarch strategies as a niche option, but would similarly grow stronger with time. Infernity Necromancer was another tool in the theoretical Infernity deck alongside the previously released promo Archfiend, able to revive an Infernity from grave once per turn if you had no cards in hand, but was still missing that X factor to make the strategy sing. Fortune Lady received a couple of good targets to summon with Light's Effect in Water, who drew 2 cards on special summon, and Dark, who provided grave recursion. But neither would be good enough to make Fortune Lady viable outside of niche OTK
even
strategies.
Back in the day.
Reptilian was a series of reptiles focused on dropping attack values to 0, but was so incredibly unfocused that it flopped hard on release. Swap Frog was the next in the line of theoretically good frog support, able to special summon itself by discarding a water, able to dump a water aqua from deck to grave on summon, and able to bounce a monster from field to hand once per turn to give you an additional frog normal summon. This one would be the frog to break them out of being purely theoretical, however, as Swap Frog provided both consistent board presence and grave setup to pair the frogs with Monarchs, giving them the tribute fodder they needed to be good, spawning the deck of Frog Monarch from this combination. The Djinn monsters would also release here, a series of fiends that could be banished from grave to pay the cost of a ritual summon, giving that ritual summoned monster effects if used this way. Of these, the most notable one was Jin, Releaser of Rituals, who locked the opponent's special summons as long as her ritual monster was on the field, which while inconsistent now would cause a severe headache in a few years. Blackwings received a new synchro in Silverwind the Ascendant, who was a level 8 requiring 3 materials, killing its usefulness almost immediately, but it would see play simply as a level 8 target to summon with Vayu in Vayu Turbo decks. Gemini Spark was another piece of Gemini support, able to tribute off a Gemini to pop a card on field and draw a card.
Okay, Stardust Overdrive, not that bad. It's just not, there's no new big deck immediately, but there's a lot of good, like, single cards in this. Like, Gemini Spark shaped the metagame for years, because, like, Hero Beat was a thing because of this card for, like, a long time.
This was intended to give Gemini decks more of a footing. What it actually did was give Hero Beat another push into the meta by creating a resource loop with Neos Alias, allowing you to tribute a Neos Alias to pop a card and draw, then use Hero Blast to add the tributed alias back to hand and pop an additional monster, turning Hero Beat into a serious meta contender. Preparation of Rites allowed you to search for a level 7 or lower ritual monster and recur a ritual spell from grave to hand, seemingly built specifically to exclude Demise from this search to prevent another Demise OTK list. Because of this, Preparation of Rites would see no play in this
That's such a fun fact. Like, that Preparation of Rites presumably adds level 7 or lower because of Demise King of Armageddon. I never thought of it like that. I never thought about it. I just thought, like, yeah, but maybe that's actually the reason. Maybe that's the reason why it never searches level 8 or higher. Like, I mean, from the perspective from the, like, at the time, I guess it makes sense, right? But it's still such a funny thing to realize in 2023, is that this card maybe has this balancing on it because of Demise King of Armageddon, which is, yeah, weird.
Term period, but would become useful as a searcher for any future ritual strategies if the mechanic ever became useful. Stygian Dirge was an odd floodgate, dropping the level of all opponents' monsters by 1, which was intended to block synchro spamming, but was just mostly an inconvenience.
I mean, never saw play until... I mean, people sometimes used it to counter Sprite. But it was until XYZ. Like, XYZ, people would use it sometimes. Like, it would kill Evil Swarm, for example, right? I personally didn't play it, but some people cited it in, like, Dragon Rulers against Evil Swarm. It was far better in XYZ format than it was in Synchro format. Because if you were playing a synchro deck at the time, right? Let's say you had a tuner and a non-tuner. Both of their levels were reduced by 1. They were still, like, you could still make a synchro out of those. And usually all of the synchro decks ran every level anyways, right? We've seen a bunch of their extra decks. It was always you played the level 5s, the 6s, the 7s, the 8s, the 9s, whatever was available, right? So if you had a tuner and a non-tuner, which level equaled 8, and your opponent did Stygian Dirge, you would just make a 6 instead, and you would play 6s anyways. During XYZ era, it was a little bit different because most decks were very focused on summoning the same rank of XYZs, right? It was like all level 4s or all level rank 3s, right? And so in a deck that was completely focused around summoning rank 4s, having all of your monsters being reduced to level 3 was bad. Yes, theoretically you could make a rank 3, but your deck wasn't built to do that, so most of the time you didn't even run a level 3, right? And even if you did, it wasn't part of your core strategy. So it was a little bit better during XYZ era, but even then it was never, I don't think it was ever like a really good card. Like it was experimented with at some point, but it wasn't great.
It would, however, see play in later eras to block out other kinds of extra deck mechanics that were more rigid on their level requirements. Appointer of the Red Lotus was a trap that could temporarily banish a card from the opponent's hand, which while not too useful now, as most decks were operating as a pseudo toolbox of options, it would be useful as more and more decks move towards a more combo-oriented playstyle. Gateway of the Six was a TCG exclusive that gained 2 Bushido counters anytime you summoned a 6 Samurai monster, then could remove counters from your side of the field to trigger an effect, with 2 getting you an attack.
This card, whoever made this card, I would like to talk to. Just like, I just want to talk, man. I just want to talk. Because this is a TCG exclusive at the time. So, who did it? Who did it? I have questions. I have just a few questions I have. You know, because this card is completely bonkers. Adding a samurai from deck or grave to hand for 4 counters, not once per turn, creating 2 counters every time a a 6 samurai is summoned, is crazy, man. It's just asking to be looped. This card is asking to be looped. It's crazy.
Attack boost, 4 getting you a search for a 6 samurai, and 6 letting you revive a Sheen monster from the grave.
Wasn't the Roach here too? No. Maxi is not in 2009. Maxi is 2011. In not Stardust Overdrive, Maxi is Storm of Ragnarok. STON, not SOVR.
While it wouldn't be too good now, as 6 Samurai only really had one spam out option in Grandmaster, who
actually no, not STON, STOR. STON is Storm of Neos. Never mind, STOR.
One copy on the field at a time. If 6 Samurai ever got the ability to spam summon, this could become an issue really fast thanks to the lack of once per turns on it. Lastly, we have a few OCG import boss monsters that all have their own unique special summoning conditions, being Dark Samorg, who could be special summoned from hand by banishing a Dark and
Labyrinth Duelists in 2023, close your eyes now. Close your eyes.
Wind and Grave, or from grave by banishing a Dark and Wind in hand, and prevented the opponent from setting cards. Archlord Christia, who could be special summoned if you had 4 fairies in grave, adding 1 from grave to hand on summon, locks special summoning for both
I don't want to talk about Christia.
Players while on field, and place itself on top of the deck when sent to grave, and Guardian Iados, who could special summon herself if you had no monsters in grave, and could send an equip spell on her to grave.
That was another like macro skill drain beatdown kind of card that
3 monsters from the opponent's grave, gaining 500 attack for each. Of these, Christia and Iados would find some niche play, with Christia finding the occasional tech spot in some Lightsworn builds, and Iados finding a niche in macro drain decks as a free 2500 body since your grave usually had no monsters in it. And with that, 2009 came to a close. All in all, the year itself was fairly uneventful on the surface due to the legal battle waging in the background, but this was simply the calm before the storm. As we entered into 2010, we'd find a wonderland of new playable strategies, a wasteland of new menaces, and the birth of the long-running mainstay of the competitive community. A huge shout out to my Dark...
What a year, man. What a year 2009 was. Sorry I'm late, I had to take the kids. Oh, you just arrived in time. We just finished. 2010 is not there yet, though, right? Where's 2010? I need 2010 in my life. Everyone add the law Yugioh in chat and tell them to make 2010. Add them right now. They're in chat right now. Add them, add them, add them. Everyone. All right, that was a good one. That was a good one as well. All right. I'm gonna link you guys the channel once again, in case you're into this sort of stuff. Lots of really cool nostalgic videos like that. Let's go, chat. The channel link is in chat. Everyone go subscribe to the Law Yugioh. Really been enjoying these types of videos, and I can't wait for 2010 to come out.